So we're on Kuf Aleph Amid Aleph towards the end of the parak. But just if you can permit me, let's review the last sugya here. On the top of the Amid, it says Hayu Shneim Kohanim. We have this case where we cannot identify with certainty his father, because he might be a Ben Tes or a Ben Zion. And we said the following, that if he would hit and wound one and the other Bazecher Zeh in sequence, then he's potter, because we can't pin him down. Second, there's a problem here. So we cannot pin down which one of these two hakos is machayev him of makeh ovid. The same thing is kilel. So Tana Rabbana, we learned to the Bryce he could zeh b'chazav because a kilel zeh b'chazav a kilel zeh. So in both of these two cases, we have a problem of hasra safek. We don't know which klolo, which hakah generates a chiyuv. However, the Tanakhama says, Hilel shneim b'vas achas, or hika shneim b'vas achas, chayav. And Rabbi Yehuda omer b'vas achas chayav, b'zecher zeh pot. So let's start with Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda's sheet is intuitive, is a lot more intuitive. He's saying the following: if it's b'zecher zeh, then we have hasra safek. In each case of Asra, it's not necessarily so that he's hitting his father. We don't know which one of the two is his father. But if it's Bavasachas, if he takes a long stick and he hits both of them and they gave him Asra, then you'll definitely be Chayav Misa. We don't know exactly which is his father, which Hakah, but he did one Hakah. So in that Maisa Hakah, he got a full-fledged, definite Hasra that he's Chayav. And that's called Bavasachas. He writes here in the Masechet Yevamot, Kilel Shneim b'vasachas chayav. I suspect that this is based on a halacha which is called Tov Kedei Dibur. I'm just guessing. That even in speech, you could have simultaneity. I mean, you and I would ask, what's Shayach simultaneity? First he's Makal Ruvain, and then he's Makal Shimon. Well, the answer is if he does it in close proximity in time, which is called Tov Kedei Achilas Shalom Rebbe Mori. Right, then that's called b'neshima achas. Like in one breath, then we consider it as if it was simultaneous. That's called toch kedei dibur. Now let's go back to the Tanakhama. Tanakhama's view is a little bit more complicated because he's saying that not only in kil shneim basachas or hika shneim basachas yechai, but even in kil zeva b'chaz v'kil zeh. So apparently, the Tanakhama holds that Asra Safek Shmei Asra. The only problem with Asra Safek is that we never know if he's Chayav. But if Lu Yitzur, we'd have Asra Safek, but we know he's Chayav. For example, in a case where he was warned not to be Makal both of these individuals and not to be Makit both of these, then we know he's definitely Chayav. We can't pinpoint which action generated the Chiyuv. He can give Asra for both of those actions, even though they take place in sequence. And that's because Asra Safek Shmei Asra. So again, Asra Safek Shmei Asra means we can validate Asra, even though it's an iffy situation. He can violate Asra and not necessarily violate generate the Oresh. But if we know for sure that he's going to be Chayav, then we can take it with two actions and put them all together. But let me give an example. I don't know if, I don't think the Gemara is going to give this example. A man takes a shvua, shlo ochal kikar zu, okay? Here, this is kikar zu. This is your item number one. Im ochal zu, if I'll eat this one. He's got 2 loaves of bread. He takes an oath that he won't eat this one if he goes and he eats this one. So now if we give Masra, don't eat this one, That's Hasra Safek, because that shvua is only valid if he eats the other one. We don't know if he's going to eat the other one. But he's definitely enjoined by shvua from eating both of them. He can't eat both of them. He can't have your cake and eat it. So if we give him Asra and we say to him, don't eat both of them, then we know he's going to be chayav, even though when we gave him the Asra on this one, it was a suffix. So again, in Asra suffix point to Tanakama Rabbi Yehuda, you could validate the Asra if it encompasses a number of actions and establishes a Badai Chiv. According to Rabbi Yehuda, on the other hand, Asra suffix Lav Shmei Asra, we have to pinpoint a particular action and be absolutely definite about that single action that it will definitely generate the Chiv. The Gemara right away raises the following objection. Tanya, we learned in the Brayso Rabbi Yehuda Omer Patur Bivas Achas, which means that even if he hit both of them simultaneously with one long stick, and it's not Asra Safek anymore, because we know that if he does that action of smacking both of them, he's definitely going to be chayav for one of them. And yet Rabbi Yehuda says he's potter. And our answer is Trei Tanoia, I'll leave it to Rabbi Yehuda. In the tradition of Rabbi Yehuda, we have two traditions. We have one opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda holds that he's potter even in the case of Hikab Masachas, where he hits both of them. We didn't even have such a sheet until then. So that's the other extreme of Hasra Safik Lav Shmei Asra, that even Vasachas, it's Lav Shmei Asra. Meaning we're going to take this one action and we're going to break it down into its component parts, each one of which is a suffix. But then we have another opinion in Rabbi Yehuda, that Rabbi Yehuda holds that Masachas Yechayev. Then we have finally the Shitas Chachamim that even Bazecher Zeyef. So it goes from one extreme to the other. We have one Shita that holds that even Vasachas Yepotter. We have one Shita that says even Bazecher Zeyef Chayev. And we have one Shita that says it depends. If it was Bazecher Zeyef Potter, if it was Vasachas Yepotter. My time of the Omar de Potter. According to that, Tanu understood, according to Rabbi Yehuda, even in the case of Hika Shneim B'Masachs or Kilel Shneim B'Masachs, you're still Potter. The Gemara doesn't understand why. When he gets Asra, don't hit both of them without one action. That becomes Asra's Vadai. What's lacking here? Why? What condition in the Chiyuv is lacking, is not fulfilled? Rab Chanina, Nemar Bracha Lemata, V'Nemar Bracha Lemala. Now, the word bracha is a euphemism for a cloak. And in two different parshios, the Torah tells you about the Isser cloak. One is called Lamata, and one is called Lamala. Lamala means each ki yikalel Eloha v'nasa cheta. So this is what's called Makalas Hashem. And that's called Lamala. Then we have an Isa Klo Lamata, which is by Aviv Ve'ima. It doesn't tell you where the pasuk is here. Sifta disappoints me. David, maybe in your Gemara tells you where the pasuk is. For Nemar Bracha Lamata. Just like to see the pasuk inside. Maybe I have it here in the. Here I have it in the Torah. Or Umekalel Aviv Ve'imo Mos Yumos Mos Chaf Aleph. So we're now comparing two parshas. We're comparing the parsha of Mekalel Aviv Ve'imo in Shmos with the parsha of Ki Yikalel Loka V'Nasa Cheto in Vayikra Chaf Dalet. Just like in the case of a person who never curses the Ribono Shel Olam, Achmana Litzlan, Ein Bo Shutvis, he's chayav for cursing the Almighty, and there's no shutfus, meaning God is one. He doesn't have any partners. So that he didn't curse anyone besides that one ultimate being with a capital B. Aflamata, so too in the case of Makal of the Imo, what kind of klola did the Torah prohibit? It's got to be similar to the Lamala, to the case of Yakala Loka. And that is Ein Bo Shutfus. And therefore he has a Chiyuv Vadai. And it's not because he added someone else into the equation and he cursed two people. And I think what's going on here in this Gemara, and honestly, David, I have no recollection of learning this Gemara, which doesn't say much about my memory, but anyway. What happens now is that forget about Asras Safik, Asras Vad. There's no psul, there's no deficiency in the Asra. That's not the issue. The issue is whether he's chayav for such a makalel when he needs shutfus. He can only be chayav, we can only establish his chiyuv when he's makal both Reuven and Shimon, his two potential fathers. And the Torah excludes that from the chiyuv misa of makal of the imam, because you need a chiyuv misa in makal that's similar to makal lokov, which is ein bo shutfus. But here, the only way possible for us to establish his chiyuv klola is with shutfus, when he's mishatev both these two fathers into one klola. Now, what about Hakah? If he hits both of these, Reuben and Shimon, is kishakah liklola, whatever dinim you derive and establish with regard to klola, whatever are the requirements and the preconditions for a chiyuv klola, they automatically apply to Hakah. So we have, I think, what you call the transitive law. A equals B equals C. And we go like this. We start with C, which is makala loka, and it has to be ein bo shutfus. From there, we equate it by analogy to makalel, and makalel has to be ein bo shutfus. And then because of the equation between B and A, meaning between klola and Hakah, Hakah likewise has got to be ein bo shutfus. So when Rabbi Yehuda says you're part of Hakah b'masachas or klola b'masachas, has nothing to do with the issue of Asras Safik. It's a pure, a wonderful example of Asras Bada. But there's a ptur in the machayev of both klola and Hakah. Now the Mishnah continues, V'ole b'mishmaro shel zeh v'shel zeh v'eino cholik. When this son of either Reuven or Shimon, both of whom are Kohanim, shows up for the Mishmar, and the Anshe Mishnah say, get lost, buddy. You can't prove that you belong to have Mishmar. We're going to allow him to join the Mishmar. And as I said, this is a case where you get 2 weeks for the price of one. However, Eino Cholik, if he says, I want a portion in the Basar or the Oros, that's already an issue of Didi Mominos, and the overriding principles are Motzi Mechavel Varaya. You can't prove that you deserve a chelik. We don't want to give up our chelik for the sake of you. Go prove that absolutely you belong to this Mishmar. So if you're talking about just joining the Mishmar for Avoda, okay, that we're gonna allow you to do. But if you're talking about demanding payment for your Avoda in monetary terms, that you have no right to do until you establish that you definitely belong to this Mishmar. So the Gemara asks, strange question. The Gemara is asking, why should he join the Mishmar if he can't get a portion of the Mishmar? And the answer is obvious. He wants to be part of the mitzvah of Avodah. The Gemara immediately jumps on the Makshu. Lama Ola? You're asking why he goes up to serve in the Mikdash together with the other members of the Mishmar. Ha'amar, he's claiming, Be'ino de Nevad Mitzvah. I have rights to participate in the great mitzvah of Avodas HaMikdash. Okay, I'll have to give up on the kodshim when they divvy up the kodshim because I don't have monetary claims that are well established with certainty that I get the kodshim. But Chach, let me do the avodah. Elo, so the Gemara backtracks and says, let's refurbish the kasha. Olo lo katani. Right, it says in the Mishnah, Ole. Ole means that he's obligated to participate in the kachma. Now it's beginning to come back. He's allowed, no, I'm sorry. It doesn't say Ola, he went up and he joined, the ranks shoulder to shoulder with the other Anshe Mishmar, and we have to let him go and participate in the avodah. That's not what it says. What it says is that we're going to force him to go up and do the avodah. Whether he likes it or not, he has to do the avodah. Why? He's not obligated. I mean, he may be obligated, but maybe he's not obligated. So the Gemara is basing its kasha on the fact that the Mishnah indicates that he has no choice, and like it or not, we're going to force him to do the avodah. Why is that so? Omar Rav Acha bar Chanina, Omar Abaye, Omar Rabbi Asi, Omar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Gam Mishpacha. Again, selfishly, he could say, "Go prove that I'm chayiv in the avodah." I'm not certain that I'm not definite that I'm chayiv in the avodah, and thanks but no thanks. But a person is not allowed to make his decision in a selfish way and just ask, "How does it affect me, myself, and I?" He has to make his decision, and Allah will make it for him, as the decision, his action, or in this case, his inaction, will impact on his family. Because if he's not going up to the Mishmar, people don't know that the reason why he's not going up to the Mishmar to participate in the Avodah is because we have a Suffolk who his father is, and which Mishmar he belongs to. People are going to misinterpret it and come to the conclusion that there's a Bakam in his Mishpacha. That the reason why he can't do the Avodah is because there's a Psul. Somebody over there was married to a Grusha, to a Zona, to a Chalola, and that's why he's not doing the Avodah. And that's going to be a Pagam Mishpacha. So let's say he doesn't go up with either one of these two Mishmaros. It's going to be a Pagam Mishpacha to both of these Mishpachos, that both of them have some sort of admixture of a Psul. And therefore, he's got to go up to do the Mashmaros of both families, assuming that either one of these are his father, whether it's Reuben or Shimon, because if he goes up for one and not the other, there may be a Otzas Laz on a Pagam Mishpach. Now the Mishnah says, let's say these two fathers, potential fathers, either Reuben or Shimon, belong to the same Mishmar, then he definitely gets a chelik. You can't push him away because Mimanav Shach, he deserves a portion. The Gemara explains, Maishna Shnei Mishmars below, the Azalahu Mishmaro Matchile, the Azalahai Mishmaro Matchile. In a case where the two fathers, potential fathers, belong to two different mishmaros, he cannot collect a chelik of the kodshim because each mishmaros is going to push him off to the other mishmar. You belong to that mishmar, and vice versa. So the Gemara asks, Mishmar echad nami ozil lahai beis avu madchi. What happens when we divide up the mishmar into batei avos? Right, and each mishmar is divided into 6 batei avos, and each beis av gets that day of the 6 days of the week within the week that's earmarked for this mishmeres. And therefore, when he shows up on a Sunday, and he says, look, I'm certainly part of this mishmeres, they have a right to say, but you're not part of our beis av. Your beis av is going to serve tomorrow on Monday. So why is it that in this case where the two fathers, potential, both belong to the same mishmeres, that he guarantees himself a chelik? Why? Each beis av could push him off. The case in the Mishnah is where they both belong not only to the same Mishmeres, but also to the same Beis Av. So both fathers are serving in the Mikdash on the same weekday, whether it's Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday, whatever day of the week it is, and therefore, no matter how you slice the cake, he, the son, deserves a chelek. Okay, now the question is, I would say the following. Without committing myself, let's start the next parak, and we'll play it by ear, as they say. Now, this chapter deals with chalitza, which is a major chunk of the parsha of Yevamot, of Yibum. So, a man dies without children, and he has a brother that survives him. The brother has two choices: either he's mekayim the mitzvah of Yibum with the wife of his late brother, or he gives a chalitza, and there she can marry anybody else. Until he gives a chalitza, then she is what's called a shomeres yavam, and she's not allowed to marry anyone. She desperately needs chalitza. If there are many brothers, then any brother's chalitza will be valid. One chalitza. She doesn't need chalitza from each brother. Now, how does the Torah describe chalitza? So we're in Parshas Ki Teitzei. Im lo yachtotza ish lakachas es yibinto. If the Yavam refuses to marry the Yavama, the also Yibinto Ashara El Azkenim, which literally means that she, the Yavama, goes up to the gates of the elders of the city, and that's called a bezdin in our language. The Amran, she declares, Mein Yavami, Mein mean he refuses, Mein Yavami Lakim Liachiv Shem Yisrael. Lo Ava Yabmi. Lo Ava means he's not interested in being Miyabim, as if she's interested. But I don't think it matters one way or the other whether she's interested. She might want to get a chalitza in hood to marry someone else. The Karolo Zikne Iro, so the Bezdin calls him and they speak to him and they ask him what do you want? You have two options here: be Miyabim or give a chalitza. The Amad V'Amar. And he stands up and he declares in response to that question, Lo chafatzti. The Yavam says, I'm not interested in being miyabim. Lo chafatzti lekachta. The niksha yevimto elav. Li ene azkenim. And now the Yavama comes close to him in front of the Bezdin, v'cholza, and she removes nalo me'al rad. She removes the shoe off his foot, the yarka b'fanav, and she spits on the ground in front of him. The answer of the Amra, then she declares, Kacha yeyasa leish asher lo yivnes beis achiv, v'nikra shmo b'Yisrael beis chalutz, and that chalitza is matir her to marry any Jew. Now the question is, the Torah seems to indicate that you need judges for chalitza, right? Because it says v'korolo zikne iro, and then it says v'yomar lo chafatzi lekachta. Then it says v'niksha yivim toelav li'eni azkenim, again bezdin v'cholza nalo me'al ragel. So all this takes place in the presence of bezdin. How many members of the Bezdin do we need? We have three different categories of courts. We have a Bezdin of Shlosha, that's the basic number, 3 Dayanim. Then we have a Bezdin of Chav Gimel of 23 judges. And finally, we have a Bezdin of 71 elders. That's the Bezdin HaGadol. So which Bezdin is necessary for Chalitza? Then, what is a now of chalitza? What does it look like? Which leg is he wearing it on? Then we have to ask about kriya. How critical is it that she read the parsha, because there were lines here that came out of her mouth, Yavam's mouth. And Eureka, what she has to spit. Well, what are the laws of Eureka, of Yorik? Then we're going to discuss in this perek, Cheresh, if the Yavam is a deaf mute, Chereshes, or the Yavama is a deaf mute, Katan Uktan. Is there a need for chalitza? So the Mishnah says the following: Mitzvahs chalitza b'shlosha dayan. All you need is 3 judges. Not only that, but ve'afilu shloshtan hedyotos. These are simply, rank and file people off the street. They have no bekius, no special study or expertise. Certainly not in Shulchan Aruch in general, but not even in the laws of Yibum. And they're not dayanim, but yet they are kosher. Now it's very strange. It says mitzvahs chalitza b'shlosha dayanim, but yet the Mishnah goes on to say afilu shlosham hedyotas. So take your pick, Either there's shlosha dayanim or shlosha hedyotas, but you can't have your cake and eat it. Do you follow? Everybody following the stira here, the Mishnah. It says dayanim, and then it says shlosha hedyotas. Hedyotas are not dayanim. Hedyotas are just simply rank and file citizens in the country. So again, we don't know how to interpret this Mishnah, but we're going to go on and read the next part of the Mishnah. And the Mishnah says, what do we need for now? Also b'minol chalitzasa kshera. So we have now 2 categories. We have a sandal and we have a knot. Now a sandal is made of hard leather. A nal is made of soft leather. Now, the other difference is that does the nal cover the entire leg on both sides, on all sides? So if it's a sandal, it doesn't necessarily surround the entire foot. A nal, on the other hand, mechases haregel mikol tzadeh v'gam lemala. So a nal will cover the leg, will cover the foot, even above. Vasuya mikama chatichos or. And I guess you sew together various leather pieces. The koshernes hanal ala regel in ritzuos. All right, this is already the next sugya that we'll learn. In any event, the Mishnah says, Cholza b'minal chalitzasa kshera. Now, it's very interesting. Chalitzasa kshera means b'di'evet. This is not our first choice. Minal is not our first choice. Why not? And the paradox is because minal is even better than now. And because it's better than now, we would rather avoid it. Let's try to explain that paradox. A now, you remember we discussed before that there are two categories of now. There's one made out of hard leather and another made out of soft leather. And we spoke about the fact that it covers the entire foot, that it even goes above the ankle and so forth and so on. But here's the deal. If it's made of soft leather, then it is such a good soft fit around the foot that even if it gets ripped, which is called kriya with an ayin, it is still functional. And now the Chachamim are very worried about what's called a nal krua, a ripped nal. Dafka in the case of a soft leather shoe, we have to be worried about a rip in the nal. If it's hard leather, then no one would wear such a nal. You just throw it into the rubbish bin. It's ripped, and you can't fix it. But if it's made of soft leather, then sometimes you can stretch it this way, stretch it that way, and start reattaching pieces. Again, all these details will be clarified in the sugya. But a nal krua is pasul l'chalitza. And therefore, if we allow you to use a minal, which is made of soft leather, the chashash, the suspicion is you might come to be matir, even in the case of nikra ha'ar, where it was ripped. Then the Mishnah goes on to disqualify certain categories of shoes. So until now, we have joined together both a minal of or rach, of soft leather, with a minal of or kosh, of hard leather, and both are okay b'di'evet. They both are considered a na. We will disqualify or rach, the soft leather, because we're afraid he might confuse it even in the case of nikra. But now we go on to cases where it's not a minal at all. It's neither soft leather nor hard leather, and it's possible. And that's called anpilia. Anpilia is when you take a garment made out of cloth and you wrap it around your feet. Do we have anything in our contemporary life that would be called anphilia? Oh yeah, I have a pair of slippers at home. Yeah, and it's made out of cloth. It's very comfortable, but it's not a nal. Nal has to be made out of or, out of leather. So anphilia chalitzasa psula. The Torah says nal. A nal is something that protects the foot. And you know what I mean? Either it's soft leather or hard leather, but it protects the foot. It's leather. And anphilia, which is made of bad is the Hebrew word for cloth, is not considered a nal. And now the Mishnah goes on to ask the question about a sandal sheyesh lo akev and she'ein lo akev. Yesh lo akev kosher. Ein lo akev posel. Again, we're going to have to, this is a whole other topic for another day, but I think what we're talking about, just bigadol, in general terms, is he calls it a davar ma'akev es haregel shelo tetzei me'anal. you have to cover the foot in such a way that it won't fall off, that your shoe won't fall off, that the shoe is holding on, grabbing onto your foot. And elo akev means it doesn't really hold on to your foot. It could fall off at any moment. And tomorrow, B'lineder, if we, again, I'm reserving my rights to choose a parak, but if we go on in this Mishnah, we're going to see exactly what yesh lo akev is and ein lo akev, and why ein lo akev is possible if it's derived from a pasuk, and what is the drush. So let's just make a note of where we got up to. So again, tomorrow's a fast day, but I think we will try to do the best we can. We'll give it a shot. All right, then? Okay, have a great day.